Good evening. How's everybody?
Good evening. Doing well. How are you?
I'm excited to be here. This is, excuse me. This is the highlight of my week. Y'all know that. How sad is my life? But this is the highlight of my week. I look forward to this every week.
Well, we all got to have something to look forward to.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. I look forward to being with y'all.
Well, hopefully it's just more than me and Janiqua.
I hope so too. If not, it won't take us long.
Nope.
Janiqua went last week. Let me see. Let me share my screen. That's the wrong one. Right there. And Stephen, Michelle, and Tashira. Michelle probably won't make it tonight. They had some kind of a incident at school, so she probably won't be able to present. We're trying to catch up with Jimmy from last week. So we'll see who we get. We'll give them a few more minutes here. What did Michelle say? Significant bomb threat on campus. Yep. Yeah.
Mine was not that interesting of a day, but I have a question.
Okay.
Got home. I actually came home for class tonight, which I never do. I normally stay at work. And got an email from one of my teachers who said she was resigning effective immediately.
Mhm.
I know I can hold her for 30 days, but I don't want to.
Not only can you hold her for 30 days, you can pull her license.
I want to do that. She's a horrible teacher. She's a safety risk.
That's what I mean. That's what you ought to do is if they don't work out the 30-day notice, you can have their license pulled. That's what you should do. You should contact your HR tomorrow, forward the email that she sent you, and that you want to go due process on her.
Okay.
Pull her license like she can't teach anymore?
That is correct.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yes.
So I want to do that. And the letter of resignation that she sent me, she copied me, or she put me on the email, my superintendent, and then her team of teachers.
Good.
So
I'd be hunting me a sub for tomorrow, and I
already did. I have it lined up.
So I mean, I wouldn't try to force her to come back. If you want to resign without working out a notice, that's fine. But in North Carolina, right to work state, if you do that, you have to surrender your teacher's license.
Well, I think that's what I want to do because she's not good for kids. And I was working on documenting her out anyway.
Yeah.
So her email was kind of nasty, but you know what? It's all good.
That's good. That's
Yeah.
more ammunition for you to not, you say, I was documenting for dismissal. You see what I'm working with here. I think it's the best thing for the profession to pull her license.
Okay. I'll contact HR tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I just wish I had seen it before I left school, so I could have gone and gotten all her crap.
Yeah. I'd clean out the room tomorrow.
I will.
And I'd alert security not to let her back in the door, that she no longer works there, according to her. And that she's,
I'll have her badge deactivated.
Yes, exactly. She could be a risk.
Yep. It was very interesting. One of my teachers texted me and said, "Have you seen your email?" And I said, "No, I was driving." She said, "Read your email." I said, "Okay." And I read it, and then I started getting on the phone and calling the people I needed to call, and I already lined up a sub and everything. I got plan B in place really fast. So that's my excitement.
good and it's bad.
Yeah. So remember, Jonathan is on a cruise. He is in Cozumel.
Oh, Jonathan's in Cozumel
Yeah.
right here. You can reference 115C 325.9 teacher resignation. If a teacher who is not recommended for dismissal does not resign during the term without giving at least 30 days notice, I mean, that is what we're talking about. You've not recommended for dismissal yet. The board may request that the State Board of Education revoke the teacher's license for the remainder of the school year. And then that ends up being a permanent. It can't be permanent, but it will be, basically.
Okay.
Right here under 115 325.9. Let me share my screen. You don't think we didn't used to do this in Charlotte all the time?
Oh, I'm sure.
Right here. Right there it is. The board may request that the State Board of Education revoke the teacher's license for the remainder of the school year. Again, it can't be a permanent, but it turns into a permanent because that they would have to show cause to ever get it back. It'd have to go to a school district. That district would have to hire them knowing that they were going to have to figure out a way to get them relicensed. And they normally, until she can't get another one without getting a job again. And the district knowing that they've got to figure out a way to get her a license, and they're not in that business.
Nope. Maybe I should go ahead and forward the email to HR and tell them.
Yes.
Yep, that's what I'm gonna do.
Under the provision of General Statute 115C 2325.9, teacher resignation.
So last year, in her class, under her supervision, a student threw a pencil and hit another student in the eye and blinded them.
Oh my Lord.
So, and I was out sick with COVID when that happened, but yeah, she is, in my opinion, she is a safety risk.
Yeah.
So, all right, I'm going to forward that email real quick.
Yeah. Yep. We ain't playing. They treat us like doormats if we let them. I'm not anti-teacher. That's not what that. I mean, that people think, oh, you're anti-teacher, but no, I'm anti having no standards and letting them act any way they want to, because kids always pay the price. I'm not anti-teacher. I'm pro-kid.
Yeah, and I think that in our profession we have to be, of course, because when I left Mecklenburg County, I definitely I didn't even give a month. It was like 2 months that I stayed before I left.
Yeah. It's 30
because I knew that my
days
babies were going to suffer.
You can be held for 60.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why districts are getting treated so bad nowadays is because they're allowing it.
Mm-hmm.
If you have some standards and we do what we have to do, but that discourages other people from treating this badly. I hate to be that way, but I'm just telling you, if you let people treat you badly, they will. And the kids always pay. It's like Rebecca's talking about how, the kids are in danger with people like this, because she thinks that she can act that way because you need her. We don't need anybody that badly. And so this is a good one for a personnel class, that you have to establish. I mean, we can have all the rules and regulations in the world, but if we don't enforce them, then they aren't worth the paper they're written on. I'm not a hardliner. I'm not a right winger or any of that, but I am about kids. That's why you hear me say every week. I hope I remember to say every week, you got to be a champion for kids. And we have to enforce a code of behavior on teachers so that the kids don't end up with the short end of the stick. It might be a minor inconvenience for us as adults, but think about the trauma that it puts the kids through. Many of them live in trauma already. live in crises already. They don't need more of it when they come to us. We should be their refuge, not just more of the same.
Dr. Lim, do you have any idea what day our next semester classes will be on? Like what weeknight?
I don't, because I don't know. I don't know when doctors Porter and Dr. Van Cleve, I don't know what nights they teach on. Dr. Porter, what night are y'all meeting with him now?
I don't meet with Dr. Porter.
I thought he was some of y'all's coach.
He might be. I have Dr. Van Cleve.
Yeah,
and
that's what night does she meet with y'all?
tonight, the same Wednesdays.
Wednesdays.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I don't know. It'll either be, again, we try to meet Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And Tuesday and Wednesday, if possible. I've got Thursday because I got 3 classes this semester. So I've got my other 734 classes on Thursday night. I don't know. Let me see. I don't know where I could look to find. I just go ahead and email them and ask them what nights they plan to meet, because they next semester, each of them. I was with Dr. Porter today, but I didn't know to ask him that, so I didn't, but I'm guessing he's in class tonight, or I would call him and see. But yeah, just send him an email. They've already published the nights, the weekends. I don't know. I guess they'll pick which weekend they want to.
Thank you.
All righty. So Stephen's out of town and Michelle's got a bomb threat. I don't know what Tashira's doing. All right.
So, Dr. Lamb, I read that statute even further,
Mm-hmm.
and it says you can resign without 30 days notice with the superintendent's approval.
Yeah,
Does she have to get the approval before?
that's what I mean. He that's what you're recommending. is
Yeah.
that he not accepted and go due process and pull her license. I mean, he can let her walk away if he wants to, but now again, you make that recommendation. You're recommending that not. Now he'll decide what he wants to do.
Yeah. Okay,
But
that's what I wrote.
generally, when they do that, there's some kind of a negotiation beforehand. It's not required in law.
Right.
But somebody that just walks out like that, you're not. He doesn't have to. He doesn't have to accept it and say, "Okay, no harm, no foul." And normally they'll come back to you, and I would be preemptive in saying I recommend in both. You know, the pull the board pull her license for the rest of the year.
I did. I sent that email.
Yep. And then now again, the superintendent ultimately has to make that decision.
Right. Well, all I can do is send it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And my point is I would be upfront that that's what you're recommending. And now if he goes against that, that's on him. But if something goes wrong, you're on record.
Right.
She comes back and something happens, or he doesn't pull her license and she goes somewhere else and somebody gets hurt or something happens, you're on record as having said that, and it won't indemnify you, but when the lawsuit comes, they won't get your house.
Right. Okay. All I know is I don't want her in my building.
What I mean, if you don't think she should be in your building, then you don't think she should be in any building, and you've made that clear. And if they bring her back or move her to another school, or if she's using this as the bargaining chip, that's fine. But now you can't be accused of passing the trash and be in on the lawsuit when somebody gets hurt.
Right. And about a month ago, I wrote a letter of reprimand for her. So I mean, she's in her resignation letter, she said that I'm not supportive and it's not a safe environment. Well, she said that after I wrote her a letter of reprimand because she put her hands on a kid and is not trained.
Right.
So I don't know. Anyway, it's done.
Yeah. No, if you hadn't been, well, they have different acronyms. I think the last one that I knew was CRT training, or what do they call it now?
CPI.
CPI.
Yeah.
Now it won one iteration. CPI. If you hadn't been CPI trained, you better not be putting your hands on a kid, period.
That's right.
You better not even be breaking up fights if you hadn't been CPI trained, because that's generally where the issue comes, is when you put your hand. Now, if you're just putting your hands on kids, that's always wrong. But if you're not CPI trained, I would not recommend that you break up fights either.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, do as I say, not as I do. I was trained, but I could have probably got sued a couple of times for excessive. I mean, you've seen me in person.
Yeah.
You go to court and you look at the kid and you look at me and I lose, no matter what training I've had.
Well, one of the problems I have is I've been trained so many times. I know it and could probably be a trainer, but I injured my shoulder several years ago and the doctor won't clear me to go do it again.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. But, that's one of the things about, large men is that even if you've been trained, they'll claim that you were excessive in your force. Well, it doesn't take much for me to be excessive.
They did that a couple years ago with a broken up fight. I remember it was on the news. Yeah.
We had it all the time in Charlotte. We trained everybody, and we tell the bigger men, you're making a risk. You're taking a risk now. Doesn't matter how much training you got. You over 6 foot tall and over 200 pounds, especially with smaller kids. It don't take much for somebody to find that you were excessive, especially if you leave a mark. I mean, that's no training will save you from a jury if you walk in and you're the Hulk and the kid isn't.
Right.
And so that's the problem in elementary schools. Now, middle, yes, high school, not so much. But you got to be real careful with men in elementary school, real careful. to the point
Well-
where when I was an elementary principal, I didn't have that problem because I didn't have any men on staff.
I have a fair amount of men on staff, but and I have told the kids that are my high flyers and cause the most issues, I can walk into the classroom, put my hand out, they'll take my hand and everything stops. Like,
Yeah.
if they just build a little bit of a relationship with the
Yeah,
kid, you can
exactly.
stop it.
Exactly. I'd rather spend the time doing conflict management and relationship building rather than CPI training.
Right.
I think that's more value because you're always putting everybody at risk when you put hands on a kid.
Right.
I mean, that can't be your go-to move. That can't be your go-to move. That's the last option when somebody's getting hurt. That can't be your first option.
When I first started at my elementary school, there was a room, they called it the sensory room, and there was nothing in it. Like, it was an empty space, and when kids would go into crisis, they would take the kid in there with the adult.
Yeah.
This year, I got rid of that room, and my staff pushed back, and they yelled, and they fought me on it tooth and nail. And I said, no, it's going away, because if we don't have it, you can't send a kid to it. Because all it did was trigger the kid. I have not had to use any kind of anything since I got rid of that room.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a crutch. That's what I mean. It's your go-to move. It's what you do first rather than it's the last resort. That's the whole point.
Right. And
there was a professor at UNC Charlotte when I got to town. He had been a principal in Charlotte Mech, and somehow he had filtered over to UNC Charlotte, and he had a program. It was a part of, it was a disciplinary system like PBIS, but it was called Responsible Classroom Management. And we were exploring that as a group in Charlotte Mecklenburg. And part of the problem with it, though, was the ICU, which was basically what you're talking about. It was like a place you take kids that were disruptive. It wasn't like rolling or bouncing in PBIS where you move them to another room. It was a separate room. And that's exactly what we're talking about here. And what happens is when you open that up, it stays full every day, rather than teachers dealing with their problems, rather than that being a last resort and working through all the steps like you were supposed to. That's their first step. Problem with CPI training, instead of that being the last resort, that's your first step. And when you go to court, they ask, what steps did you take along the way? And if all you can say is none, if you're a smaller person, you might get away with it. But if you're a big person, they don't have to know what you did. It's just the differential in size.
right. And those isolation rooms or whatever they're called, people called them, they're actually illegal.
Yeah, that's an illegal seclusion or restraint. That's exactly, you have to report that to the state.
Yep. So I got rid of it. I did get pushback.
Yeah, I mean that's an illegal seclusion. That's exactly right. I teach that in school law. I teach school law at the master's level because we don't have anybody else, and I am trained, and so yeah, you can't do seclusion or restraint. You shouldn't have one of those rooms. I mean, we had them over at the discipline school, the public separate at Morgan in Charlotte, and that we were always having people getting hurt in and around them rooms. Even at a place like that where you have to have them, if you use them too much, it's bad.
Right.
Right. Even in locked facilities like that, you don't want to use them unless you have to. It has to be a last resort kind of thing, but you definitely don't want to make that part of your disciplinary. The irony of that whole program was responsible classroom management does not include an isolation room. That's not responsible classroom management.
Right.
That's kind of
an oxymoron.
Yeah, that's an oxymoron. How could that be it? Because you're no longer in the classroom. The whole idea of responsible classroom management is you manage all the issues inside of the classroom. And if you remove the kid out, how's that responsible classroom management? Might be responsible school management, but it's also taking on that illegal seclusion part.
Yeah.
You got to fight that battle, especially if it's not a policy of your district.
Yep. So I have another question for you since we got on wall here. I'm arguing a point right now. And given my EC background, I have enough knowledge to argue this point, but it isn't sticking with the right people. EC special transportation comes and picks my kids up at 2:00.
Right.
We get out of school at 2:30.
Yeah.
You're denying my students 30 minutes a day of specially designed instruction because they're picking them up 30 minutes early. And they also transport students that are McKinney-Vento who are losing 30 minutes of instruction every day.
Yeah. Why are they coming at 2:00?
Because that's when it fits for their bus route.
Well, that can't be. You know that.
I do. And I've talked to the EC director. I've talked to the transportation director, and it's EC director understands and she agrees with me, but the transportation director can't seem to figure out how to make it work.
That, I mean, then who was it said their transportation director got fired the other day in my other 734 class for this kind of thing? Then you need a new transportation director. Somebody's going to sue you over this, and you're going to lose.
I know.
You know how ironclad IEPs are, and McKinney-Vento kids, they're on an IEP as well.
Yeah.
We may not call it an IEP, but it's a de facto IEP for homeless kids.
Yes.
I mean, it's the same thing. It has the same legal teeth in it. So I mean, you know, not good.
Who's the right person? If the EC director understands and gets it and agrees with me,
who's your general counsel? Who's your school board attorney?
Oh, I have that on my email because I've corresponded with them before. So I would say something to the school board attorney.
I mean, that's you need to suggest to the EC person, McKinney-Vento, that they do that you're going to, at some point, you're going to write a letter, an official letter, indemnifying yourself against this, that when the lawsuit comes, that it doesn't run you over.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. I've had a couple of issues with EC transportation. One of them,
I mean, you don't want to be in front of this bull when it comes running through the china shop.
Oh no, I definitely do not.
I told you, I wore the seat of my pants out over, you know, I could walk through the backside of the Ed Center through Marshall Park over to the courthouse. But I wore the seat of my pants out in courthouse over stuff like this for the district. I used to be the one that had to do that. And you know, they talk ugly to you, and they fine you money, and they wear you out, and you have no standing in court. You can't say, well, it doesn't fit the bus route. That we don't make IEPs determined on the basis of bus routes. That's not how it works.
Right.
That's beyond the tail wagging the dog. That's a hair on the tail of the dog wagging the dog. That's just, you know, that's self-inflicted dumbassery. You're just doing that to yourself. You're just begging for a lawsuit that you're going to lose. Just begging for one. That's low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. I said that the other day, and I try not to rattle too many of those trees because I can sound extremely pompous when I start talking EC to people. So
yeah, but you know, if you got stupid people that don't know EC, then you have to.
That's accurate. That is accurate.
You know, I'm not sacrificing my career, my house, my livelihood for you.
Right.
You know, that's not my deal. Professional development coordinator, warehouse, EC, adaptive assistant girls, assistant principal, director of innovation, director of school safety and crisis management.
Oh yeah, so the whole safety department has left my school system.
Why?
I don't know. So I'm friends with the director of safety, or was friends with the director of safety in our district. And I didn't ask him. And I saw him the other day, and I should have, but at the same time, I'm trying not to be nosy, but when the whole department leaves at one time, it made me
Yeah.
start questioning. Because at the beginning of the school year, we had a serious bomb threat. And I don't know. I wonder if maybe that had something to do with his leaving.
Yeah.
But the whole department.
Hmm. I'm trying to figure out. I don't know if students.
What you want to know about it?
Let me see right here. Let me go back to this. Directors. I see two there. You got several director. There's a director vacancy that I don't see on here that I filled out a reference for this past week.
Which director position?
I'm trying to remember what it was. Student services, maybe?
Oh, really?
Well, let me look.
Now we had a position. Well, no, they just hired it. So you would have already filled out a recommendation for that one.
Director of School Relations.
Oh, she just got hired this week. Debbie Harrison is who they appointed, I think, was her name. But she's, I don't know, I'll tell you. Yeah, Debbie Harrison, Director of School Relations.
Was she an internal person?
She was. She worked in HR under the licensing and onboarding part.
Okay. What kind of job is that?
So the previous person, who was phenomenal, rewrote our discipline policy with the school board attorneys and the school board and all that kind of stuff. They aligned, they make more sense. And she was kind of like the mediary between all the complaints filed at Wallace against principals and schools, and would help problem solve through them. There were a couple that she had to help me problem solve through, but she also helped, you know, she had an EC background, so she knew EC law, so she could help navigate all those waters for parents. And I mean, she was really good.
Where'd she go?
She is the school board clerk for Cabarrus County Schools. She did not have to work a 30-day notice. She only worked a week's notice. Very interesting that she left, because she was in Cabarrus County for a really long time because I worked with her there. And then she followed our superintendent to Rowan County, was here for about a year, a little over a year, and then left. So I found that very interesting. It makes me wonder what happened to make her want to leave, because there's a story there. And I just didn't ask her because I don't want to get all nosy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're too close. sometimes you're better off not knowing.
Yeah. And I know a lot. I know where a lot of the skeletons are buried.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but as long as you know them privately, you're okay. But if there's public knowledge that you know, that makes you a target. You understand that.
oh yeah, that's why I keep my mouth shut.
And even if you do that, if people know that you know, then you're always at risk.
So both my parents were educators, and my mama and daddy both taught me you don't tell everybody everything that this
You don't have to tell everything you know. How many times you heard me say that? You don't have to tell everything you know. And when I work with doctoral students, dissertation work, I remind them you don't have to tell everything you know now.
Yep.
You can do a lot of things if you don't do it out in the open. And we're not going to do anything illegal, unethical, or whatever. But don't be out telling everything that you know, because that's going to make people angry or jealous or both. You don't have to tell everybody that I work with y'all every week and that I do 24-hour turnaround, because then they just use that information to leverage somebody else. And then always the person who's the one, you're the fulcrum in the lever. That would be me. I'm the fulcrum in the lever. And I try to explain to them that's the person that takes all the pressure and the heat. And in our business, and I hate to say this, but that this is true. If you had, say, 4 teachers in one grade level and one of them was great and the other 3 wasn't, most principals will try to throttle back the great one so the other 3 will quit complaining so much. Instead of trying to tell the other 3 you need to be as good as her, they'll try to throttle back that one. We have that notion, and so when somebody knows something in a district, we're wary of them. And if they have knowledge or information, that's power. And so again, you don't tell everything you know, because when you do that, you're basically leveraging, and you're leveraging the person that does that, and that puts them in a bad spot. They're the person that's helping you. You're not supposed to be leveraging them. So yeah, that's that deal. All right. I don't believe we're going to have anybody present tonight. I guess we'll do that next week. I'll send out an email after a while. All right. Thank you both for joining me tonight. We've gone past our 30-minute limit here. I'll see y'all next week. Y'all have a good week.
All right. Have a good evening and a good week. Bye.
Thanks.